בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים, שבוע טוב, שבוע מבורך. Good to see some new faces, Baruch Hashem. If all the new faces kept showing up every week, we wouldn't have any room to sit. So you guys should just keep showing up. So we're starting off a new week, and I was thinking about what to really talk about. But I'll talk about, I guess, something that it's a common question. But before that, this shiur will be for a refuah shlema for David ben Nesriya, Doris bat Jora, Levana bat Sarah, Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Esther bat Zipporah, Levi Mordechai ben Rivka. Have refuah shlema, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, and hatzlacha rabba to Oshri ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, and Elad ben Doris. B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give them hatzlacha rabba. So I was thinking about what to talk about, and we talk about tshuva, Baruch Hashem, as regularly as possible. And really the point of every shiur is to do tshuva. But what happens once a person starts doing tshuva and they want to build a Jewish home? How do you build a Jewish home? Is really the big question. Where do you go? What do you do? You live in the middle of non-Jewish land, and your next door neighbor is a Catholic minister or something, and your other next door neighbor is some voodoo priest, and the other guy is an atheist, and the fourth guy is Reform. He drives to shul 45 minutes every Shabbat. So what do you do? How do you build a Jewish home? Can you be Jewish by yourself in the middle of nowhere? I mean, you spend so much time and money in your house that you really don't want to leave. You have the nice, window treatment, and the backyard is just right. You know exactly the season of when the grass grows and when it doesn't grow. And the deli is right down the street. The guy knows you by name. And the tool shop is over there. And your job is over there. You only a solid 15 minutes to your job, driving every day. You don't want to leave all this stuff. Can you be a Jew by yourself? This is not only a question that Baalei Tshuva ask, but it's also a very, very common hurdle for converts, people that want to convert to Judaism. And the reason why is because anyone that wants to convert to Judaism must know rule number one: you cannot be a Jew by yourself, especially in the beginning. If you're going to say, yeah, but there were some Jews in the past that big sages that went to the middle of nowhere and started a community, yes, once you become a big sage, you can do the same thing. But until then, you cannot be a Jew by yourself. You have to be part of a community. Yeah, but you keep saying that all of these communities have problems. Yes, you have to join the problems. Join the problems and help fix them. Help fix the problem. Do not think that you being by yourself is going to be better than being part of the problem. The problem is that all of the people that shouldn't be part of the community, they want to move in. All the people that should be part of the community don't want to move in. The key is you have to move in. You have to move to a Jewish community. But the key is, how do you do it? Say, it's a lot more money. Okay, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave you money to live before, I'll give you money to live after. But what about the fact that, but you have a house, you have to sell it, so sell it. What about, buying a new house, you can't afford it, so don't buy. Don't buy. Who says you have to buy to be a Jew? I don't own a house, I don't own a car, I don't own anything. I barely own my iPhone. I had to pay $10 a month for like 500 years already. The iPhone went expired already. Apple sent me a thing, stop using the iPhone. I said, I'm still paying for it. What do you mean stop using it? I don't own anything. People think that you have to own stuff in order to be a Jew. You could live on rent. You could live on temporary. The decisions you make today do not necessarily mean it's going to be the same decision next week or next year. You live in this house today, and down the road when you have more money, you buy a different house. As you've noticed, these big questions that people have are making it seem like it's not a big deal. You like your house, move. You could buy a house, go buy one. You can't buy a house, don't buy one. Meaning these are big decisions that people usually have, and they harp over it, and they delve over it, and they think about it, and they cry about it, and they argue about it, and sometimes get divorced over it. But the truth is, when it comes to a life of Torah, none of these things hold any water. None of these things should be valued in any way, shape, or form when it comes to working on your eternity. Which means that if you're allowing a house, a neighborhood, a seat in a shul, a certain amount of kavod, respect that you want from a keilah, if you're allowing these measly little things get in the way of you serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu like you're supposed to, then you, my friend, have forgotten the purpose of why you are in this world. Now, someone asked me today a question. Now, sadly, this is coming from someone that's supposed to know better. It's supposed to, a guy that went to yeshiva his whole life, claims to know a few things, write a few articles. He was surprised I didn't read an article a few times. Anyway, this is someone that, compared to the average, he knows a few things. But he asked me a basic aleph-bet question of Judaism. And he says, listen, I'm in my 20s, and I haven't gotten married. So, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want me to waste seed, why don't he just give me a kala? Meaning, I'm only wasting seed because it's Hashem's fault. Because if he doesn't want me to make this sin, then he would give me a wife. What's the question here? I'm only sinning because of him, not because of me. Me, if he would give me a kala, I'd marry right now, I wouldn't sin. Why is this sad? Because it means that the entire Torah that this young boy has learned, lo b'shamayim. His Torah is not from Shamayim. Why? The ideology of a Jew must be 100%. If your ideology is 98%, already you're going in the wrong direction. 95, 90, maybe a different religion already. You guys are laughing. The truth is, most of the shuls that you go to, here, New York, other places, they consider themselves modern Orthodox. Now, if you look at history, and you see today's modern Orthodox, and you put that on the side, memory bank. Rewind about 70 years. Go look at conservative Jews, the conservative movement. You go look at them 70 years ago, 80 years ago. You're going to say, oh, these are modern Orthodox, right? Oh, we started along. Oh, no, these are conservative Jews. What changed 70 years ago, 60 years ago? What changed? The conservative movement decided back then. Really, what was the issues with them then? What was the difference between the Haredi, the Orthodox, versus the conservative? They both kept Shabbat. They both kept kosher. They both had a lulav. They both had sukkah. They both had matzah. They had the same thing. What was the difference? Modesty wasn't so much in the conservative. Wasn't the most important thing for them. Aside from modesty, Torah learning wasn't so much like so important. Come learn if you feel like it. You know, if you get a shiur and there's 10 people, you can say Kaddish, Baruch Hashem. That's enough already, Rabbi. You got 10 people in a shiur, Baruch Hashem, I'd be happy about it. Like this one rabbi I see in a store maybe a few months ago. And he sees me make it, oh, Kvod Harav, don't say me Kvod Harav. Just how can I help you? Forget the show. What's the problem? How can I help? I hate kavod, all this stuff, especially with the show. And I know it's not real. Ken? No, you should come to the Kehillah. I said, listen, you invited me a few times. I told you, if you can get 100, 200 people, I'll come. I don't have a problem coming. No charge, nothing. He goes, Rabbi, listen, even if we get 5 people, it's okay. Like I have nothing to do with my life. You get 5 people. For you, it's okay for 5 people. Okay, it's your Kehillah, of course it's okay. You live there, you get paid by them. Me, I'm not getting paid. I'm going there to do Zikuei Rabim, to help Rabim. Rabim means many. I'm not going to go and trek myself all the way to your Kehillah for 5 people. I get more people by myself. Yeah, but it's not a big deal. What does that mean really? Why am I reluctant to go to a place that's not that far from my house to just give a shiur to 5 people? Because that already shows me that if the rabbi of the Kehillah cannot get his own people to come to a shiur Torah for a guest, needless to say himself, cannot get the people, then the Kehillah, it's too weak. It's too weak to resurrect myself. It's too weak. A synagogue that does not have limud Torah, unfortunately, Rabotai, is not a synagogue. It's a place of prayer. You could pray there, but in the religious world, they call it instead of a Bet Knesset, they call it a Bet Hamas. Bet Hamas, Hamas, like the terrorist organization, Bet Hamas. Why? Not Chas v'Shalom because those Jewish people that are Hamas. No. Hamas stands for, it's 3 letters. The Chet is the Chumashim. You have Chumashim in those Bet Knessets for sure. Mem is Machzorim for the holidays. They come for the holidays, Machzorim. And Samech for Sidurim. That's what you have in that Beit Knesset. You have the Sidur, you have the Chumash for Parashat Shavua, because that's the, everybody reads along with the Baal Koreh on Shabbat. And you have the Machzorim for everybody comes in the holidays. But you find Gemarot, you find Limud Torah, Shiur Torah, nothing. That's a Bet Hamas, place that does not have Limud Torah. It's a Bet Hamas. This is a critical thing. If a rabbi cannot get his own people to come to learn Shiur Torah, there's something wrong. That's the whole point of the synagogue. The whole point of the synagogue is to get people to come learn. Needless to say, for a guest and so on. But unfortunately, sometimes those learners are like this young boy that asked me a question today and said, listen, Hashem is at fault for my sins. That means that he either learned this by himself, most likely learned this nonsense that he has in his head by himself, or he learned it from somebody else that learned by himself. Like his rabbi learned this by himself. Why? Because none of the mefarshim, none of the commentaries, none of the poskim, none of the gdolim, none of the big yids in history have ever said such kfirah. Never. So how could it be that such a mentality could be born of somebody that went to yeshiva for 20 years? It's no different than what happened in the conservative movement. 70, 80 years ago, they were keeping everything, but they weren't learning anything further. They weren't developing anything further. When you do not learn Torah, Rabotai, your desire to do the mitzvot becomes weaker and weaker. Your appreciation for the Torah becomes less and less, and it becomes more of a cultural thing that you're doing. You're doing because your friends are doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it for 20 years already. Now you're doing it because you're commanded to do it, because the King of Kings said to do it. No, you're doing it because you're doing it. It's like getting dressed. If you didn't have to, you wouldn't. If you could just walk around with your pajamas all day to work, to everywhere else, you do. And guess what? Many people do that. Many people, especially the people that think of themselves of who they are, celebrity world, they walk around in pajamas all day. We just started. You already worried about when we finish? We just started. So the key is, Rabotai, is to know that if you're going into a synagogue, you're going to join one. You have to find out. First, you got to find out how many shurim do we have. Is there shurim in this? What do we learn? We learn Chumash, we learn Gemara, we learn Poskim, we learn Halachot. What do we learn here? If there's something like this here, oh Hashem, it's good. If there's no learning, what's the difference between this place and any other place? The conservative didn't think that much about this. They figured that they could survive without learning. Eventually what happened, Rabotai, their rabbis agreed with them. They figured that they could survive because they already got the job as rabbis. They could survive without learning. They could survive without Yirat Shamayim. They could survive without working on themselves. And before you know it, they decided that they wanted to build a Beit Knesset for the betterment of Am Yisrael by increasing the membership count, like it's a gym membership. So how do we increase membership? We have just so many people that live in the neighborhood. Why, tell them have more kids? That's up to them. Oh, why don't we go and get people from other neighborhoods? Yeah, but the other neighborhoods, they're not just going to move here. It's expensive here, it's cheap here, they live there. No. Just tell them to come anyway. You go, no, but Rabbi, they would have to drive on Shabbat. Okay, so let them drive on Shabbat. Why? Because they're driving to Beit Knesset. So 70, 80 years ago, that's what happened. The conservative officially became Reform. How? They still call themselves conservative, but they allowed driving on Shabbat. Now you fast forward 70 years. What do you think? It just ends with one thing? No, 70 years later, the head rabbi of the conservative movement in Yerushalayim is openly homosexual. They now marry men with men, women with women. They haven't graduated to the level of the Tum'ah of the Reform, which marry men with dogs. That not yet. That's probably next year. Advanced. But men with men, women with women, all types of upside down world. Now, you're saying, unbelievable, Chavad. This is happening right now. It's happening again. It's happening again in the Orthodox. How many rabbis do you know that actually speak the emet in public? How many rabbis do you know that speak sheker? That you have a bunch of them. You have. Dude, I know. Everybody has one. Why? Because unfortunately, Rabotai, instead of listening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, instead of listening to his sages, instead of mentioning what it says in the books, many people mention their opinions. So when you have a clown like Manis Friedman come to town here in Florida just a week or two ago and tell the entire Kehillah, tell everybody, and everybody you saw in a picture, I saw in a picture, somebody sent me a little short video, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds, a minute long. They knew how much my stomach was very weak. So they already knew. They sent me a minute long, and he says this to the people. They're all wearing kippah. Rabotai, he's not in a Reform shul, he's not in a conservative. He's in an Orthodox shul. Everybody's wearing a kippah, like you. And he says to them, Chas v'shalom, that we would say that God would punish us. It's not our fault that he doesn't want to talk to us for 3,000 years, so we forgot a bunch of his rules. And everybody's like this, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
God forbid that God should be punishing us for our sins. Because when you don't talk to your children for 3,000 years, they forget some of the things you tell them.
This is Mendelssohn Rashaf 200 years ago said the same thing. Like he read his book. Like he wrote his book. To say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's his fault that we're sinning. It's his fault. Why? He doesn't want to talk to us. We're not prophets. Since we're not all prophets, he doesn't want to talk to us. So since we don't know the entire Torah, we make a bunch of sins. It's his fault, not our fault. So chas v'shalom, that you would think that the rabbi here with the long beard that looks like Santa Claus, he is going to tell you that God punishes. Chas v'shalom. Oh, the Torah says otherwise though. The Torah says that there's punishment. No, the Torah didn't mean it. The Torah meant for 3,000 years ago. But the Torah said that it's not for 3,000 years ago. The Torah says for dor, forever. For every generation. Yeah, every generation except the generation I'm living in. So you see now, Rabotai, it's not a surprise that a 20-nothing-year-old has a wrong mentality and says, listen, I'm only sinning because God didn't send me a wife. That's why I'm sinning. Meaning, it's God's fault. Now, if that wasn't enough, He sends me a follow-up. I responded to this. He sends me a follow-up. He says, I don't understand. God says that you're not allowed to hurt another person. So how is he allowed to hurt us? Isn't that making him a hypocrite? Hashem yirachem aleinu, with such mentality of a yeshiva bachur. I have goyim have better mentality than this. On their first day of desiring to be a Jew, they discovered that Christianity is falsehood. They want to be a Jew. They still don't know anything. They just know this is falsehood. I want the truth. They don't know very much, but they already have a better mentality. They didn't go to yeshiva for 20 years, Ribono Shel Olam, but they already have a better mentality. A yeshiva bachur says such a thing. A rabbi says such a thing. How could it be? Chabotai, it all starts with how we value Torah. If Torah is something to do when you have free time, this is a perfect attitude that matches it. It's a perfect attitude to match it. If Torah is something you do whenever you get a chance, yeah, it's like a hobby. You have a chance, you go to the gym. You have a chance, you play tennis. You have a chance, you go out to eat with a few friends. Get a chance, you make yourself fancy coffee. Well, you know, not the regular one that's Nescafe. You make one with the grinder, and you go and the whole thing, and you're 25 minutes just to make the bean. And you got a chance, you got 25 minutes to waste. You make that kind of coffee. Get a chance. You get a chance, you learn the Torah. That kind of Torah, you get a chance, you keep it. But if Torah, Rabotai Yekarim, is your life, is your eternity, is the only purpose you're alive, is the only purpose you will continue to live, it comes from Ribono Shel Olam. It comes from the King of Kings as a commandment and not as a suggestion. As a take it or leave it or nothing. Then this is not, this mentality is unfounded. This mentality is the wrongest thing you could possibly have. This is why, Rabotai, the Poskim, if you read Halacha, you see sometimes, whether it's Gemara or you read the Poskim, you hear how they respond to each other when there's a machloket or when there's a debate of some kind. They respond to each other with zealousness and harsh language. The Chachamim did not speak softly. Didn't speak like this cordial, sophisticated way that people speak. This philosophical language that people have where they hold things back. Always appropriate as far as the language they use, Chavos v'Shalom, never any cuss words or anything like that. But to tell somebody that, listen, you wrote this halacha, you made a sin. What was the sin? You wasted the ink. You're not allowed to be wasteful. And you wrote this in 5, 10, 20 pages. Halacha, your conclusion of what you thought, you made a sin. Not only is your conclusion wrong, but you wasted all the ink. They would write this to each other. Why? You're playing with people's lives. There's no room for error. Somebody could go to Gehenom because of you. In Birkat Shmuel, he writes in his Siman Chaf Zayin, he writes that there's a question that's asked: are you allowed to send your kids to these new types of schools they had 80, 90 years ago, 100 years ago, where the maskilim, the enlighteners, the reformers, started telling people, listen, you cannot continue sending your kids to these yeshivot, they need to learn mikzoah, they need to learn how to work, how to do this, you have to send them to universities. So, Arav Hersh, alav hashalom, was a big chacham, and he told his keilah, listen, I'm going to start a new school, it's going to be yeshiva, but it's also going to teach you some other things, some common stuff, secular studies. None of the other Gedolei Hador did such a thing. But he was a pioneer in his day, and he said, this is what I want to do. So they asked, in the Birkat Shmuel, they asked the Chacham, Rav Leibovich, is this the right thing? You cannot just say, listen, Rav Hirsch, he's a gadol, he's not just anybody, he's not Yaron Reuven, he's a big gadol. You can't say, oh, he's wrong, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You have to be careful. So this is what he says. There's a whole tshuva, and there's many pages. I'll give you the couple of points. He says, what he did, what this Chacham, this Tzaddik, he says, the Tzaddik did for his Keilah was only because he knew that his own Keilah is so weak that if he doesn't start such a school that's going to teach them both the Torah and a little bit of secular studies, in order to show them that the secular studies is nonsense, so they come back and want more Torah, they would just abandon everything and they would go to the Reform. He knew this for his own Keilah. But, he says, never ever think that this is Da'at Torah though. This is not what the Torah wants. This is not what you're supposed to do. He did it for his Keilah on a specific issue that he's a Gadol, and they listen to his rabbi, they listen to their rabbi. That's a select issue. It's like, when they say medicine, 1 out of a million, this happens too. That's the 1 out of a million. But never ever teach this as this is lechatchila, this is what you're supposed to do. Chas v'shalom, this is not what the Torah says, he says. Never think that this is what Torah says. Torah says you're not supposed to do that stuff. Why? He says because what they teach, these philosophers, is a lie. And the only way you could ever fall in love with the Torah and claim, I love the Torah, is if you hate the lie. You cannot love the lie and the Torah at the same time. Not possible. You cannot love philosophy, baseball, football, UFC, stock market, bingo, whatever it is. You cannot love that and the Torah. Not possible. Why? That's a lie. That's emet. The two contradict each other. So you may enjoy the Torah, you enjoy the mental stimulation of the Torah, you like to hear stories about Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Moshe and Yaron, and you like how they did this and they did that, and you enjoy it. But don't say you love it. Why? Because to love it means you need to hate the lie. To love it means you have to fulfill every part of it as if it's your life, as if it's your last breath. As if you cannot live without more Torah. So you enjoy it. You don't love it. A lot of people, I love Torah. Oh, you love Torah? But how come you watch movies still? How come you still go to clubs? How come you still openly sin? Not accidental sin, openly sin. Like as if it's allowed. That's why, Rabotai, we ourselves have to know where we stand. If we just discovered that we like Torah but we don't love it yet, that's okay, it doesn't make you a bad person. Makes you honest with yourself first. But that also means we have something to aspire to. So even a giant made a mistake. Giants make mistakes. But the point being, Rabotai, is that his mistake was only a mistake if he would have taught it to everyone. He didn't teach it to everyone. He didn't say everyone should do this. His own Keilah did it. And that's why the Chacham Leibovich over here says, no. He did it for his Keilah because he knows his Keilah. If you're thinking that what he's doing is what you're supposed to learn for the rest of Klal Yisrael, no, that's a mistake. It's not Da'at Torah. It's not the opinion of the Torah. He didn't try to tell everybody this is what you're supposed to do, that everybody's going to start transforming their yeshivot into universities. Chas v'shalom. Never for a moment think that that's a thing. You either have Torah or you have sheker. Yeah, but how are you going to make a living? If you learn Torah, you'll find out how you make a living. If you learn Torah, real Torah, you'll find out how you make a living. How you make a living. Kadosh Baruch Hu makes a living. How do 100,000, 200,000 avrichim survive on $400 a month? What do you think? They actually survive on $400 a month? More money than $400 a month comes. It's just $400 a month comes from the kollel. So what about the rest of the money? The rest of the money HaKadosh Baruch Hu also brings. Just like he brings the $400, he brings the $4,000 they need also. Yeah, but they don't work. How does it work? I don't know. Ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He'll give you an answer. Maybe he'll send you a text message. When you learn Torah Emet, you get to know this stuff. The problem is, sometimes we forget. We live partial Emet, partial Sheker. We're not even sure where we stand. We lie to ourselves, telling us, oh, you're such a tzaddik. You're so great. Look, you kept this. You really wanted to sin, but you did it. Chazaku Baruch. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself should give you a pat on the back. Because we still in our mind think that you'll have a life without Torah. You'll have something even remotely close to a life. Now, when a person understands their own obligation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're never going to accuse HaKadosh Baruch Hu of anything. They're never going to request anything from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather from themselves. Meaning, you request things from Hashem, but you demand of yourself. Meaning that you know that if you need something, you pray for it. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to you, that means that it's good for you. If He didn't give it to you, then it's not good for you. It may be good for you tomorrow, it may be good for you in a week from now, it may be good for you in a year from now, but today is not good for you. If it was good for you, you would get it. Meaning, you want to get married, you want to find a wife, you think you're ready. So you pray to Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give me a wife. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says no. Pashut. He doesn't even tell you about it. He just says no. How do you know? There's no wife shows up. You went on a shidduch, she called you the wrong name. She thought you were a different guy. You leave the date with your tail between your legs. I'm all alone, I'm scared. Hashem, why are you doing this to me? Guess what? He says you're not ready. You're not ready. Why? Because He didn't give it to you. So are you going to cry to Him? About what? Did you do anything to be ready? Did you become a better person? If you had the wife, would you be the ideal husband? Do you know how to be a husband? Have you learned how to be a husband? Have you learned how to be a decent human being? How many people do you know become husbands but don't know how? Become husbands but 2 minutes later they don't want to be a husband. Become a father but they regret the day that the woman gets pregnant. What did you do to deserve this blessing? What did you do? A person needs to understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you exactly what you need when you need it. At a time that it's best for you. You want to force His hand, you're in essence punishing yourself. You want to make claims against Him. It's not such a good idea. It means that you've forgotten who you are. You forgot that He is the creator and you are the creation. He is the King of Kings and you are the servant. Whether you like it doesn't really make a difference. Whether you agree that you're a servant, a slave, a nothing, a tipas rucha, a putrid seed that's going to end up becoming a food for maggots. Whether you agree with all this stuff or not, doesn't make a difference. You'll see it. I promise you. We're all going to be for lunch for maggots at one point. All of us. Now, when a person understands his nothingness and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's everythingness, you get the point of where your role is. You get the point where we have to come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Klosenberger Rebbe used to come every day when he prayed. His prayer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu was like a homeless person begging for food. was like a baby crying for his mother to feed him every day. But if you think that Hashem owes you something, your whole life is upside down. Your ideology is upside down. Even your learning of Torah is not helping you. And that's why the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that the Torah can be some chayim or some amavet. The potion for life, the potion for death. How could the same exact thing be potion for life, potion for death? If you say learning Torah is potion for life, I understand. If you say not learning Torah is potion for death, I also understand. Secular people, they're like dead people. They have no idea why they're alive. They're alive to get the next lease for the next car. They're alive to get the next house that doesn't even belong to them for 30 years because of the mortgage. They're alive to get married so they can get divorced in 3 or 4 years. They're alive to get a job so they get fired on the next layoffs. What are they alive for? They have no idea. So if you say someone doesn't learn Torah, secular life, okay, that's like death, that's potion for death. No, but the Torah here says in the Gemara, wait a minute, this Torah that you're learning, it's either Sam Chaim or Sam Amavet. The same Torah that you're learning could be potion for life or potion for death. How could the same thing? He says, if you're learning the Torah with Mesirut Nefesh, with sacrifice, to take everything you possibly can on, to do everything you possibly can to fulfill it. You learn it with Yirat Shamayim. You learn it with an understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded you to learn it, commanded you to fulfill it. He didn't ask you to do it. It's not a request. It's not, please keep Shabbat. He said, keep Shabbat or I'm going to kill you. That's what he said. At Mount Sinai, Rabotai Yekirim, Gemara Masechet Shabbat says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Mount Sinai, put it on top of Am Yisrael, literally. He says, this is our wedding. If you accept the ring, you accept the Torah, this is like the canopy for chuppah. That's why we have chuppah now. He put the mountain on top of us. He says, if you don't accept the Torah, I'm just going to drop the mountain on top of you, and this will be your burial ground. Why? If you don't fulfill the Torah, there's no point for you to be alive. Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 86a. He didn't ask us to keep the Torah. He commanded. There's a difference. So long as we think that learning Torah is a request from Borei Barach, then we'll do it whenever we feel like it. We'll fulfill it however we feel like it. We'll say whatever we feel like it, even if it contradicts the Torah. Why? Because that's his suggestion, this is my suggestion. As if we're equal, chas v'shalom. As if me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are the same thing. He has his opinion, I have my opinion. The ideology of a Jew must be 100% clear that your learning Torah is simply for survival, for prosperity, and everything in between. So long as we think that learning Torah is a bonus only, but not for survival, then we'll learn it and use it and follow it to our own liking. If you think, oh, if I want to be a tzaddik, then I'll learn Torah. If I want to be a tzaddik, then I'll follow the Torah. So long as you only do it for the reward, you have a problem. That's why Antigonos, Isochov, Mishnah Pirkei Avot, chapter 1, I believe it's the third Mishnah, he says, don't learn the Torah for the reward. Don't serve your master like you're going to get something. Serve him even if you're not going to get something. Why? If you only serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu to get stuff from him, guess what? Once in a while, you're not going to want anything. The Yetzer Hara is going to tell you, listen, you already have everything you want. You got the girl, you got the guy, you got the kids, you got the house, you got everything. Who needs HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You got it already. And you're going to put yourself in a situation where you, yourself, have put a trap for yourself. Why? Because you only served Hashem because you wanted something. If I don't want something, I don't pray to Hashem. I don't learn. Learning Torah only for reward is one of the fatal flaws fatal flaws of Jewish people throughout all of the generations. That's why it's in the first chapter of Mishnah Pirkei Avot. It's one of the foundations. The first Mishnah is Moshe kibel Torah miSinai umesara leYoshua veYoshua mesara leskenim uskenim leNeviim. Meaning the first Mishnah is how we got the Torah. Third one, don't serve the master just because you're going to get a reward. Serve him regardless. Meaning, Rabotai Karim, this is big deal. The ideology of a Jew is a big deal. Now, if a person has a good foundation, a good ideology, then surely everything that he adds to it will build a beautiful tower for himself that will last for eternity. But if the foundation is rotten, then he can be 70, 75 years old, like this Manis the Menace, and he can tell people, you could do whatever you want, chas v'shalom, that Hashem would punish you. Yeah, but what about the half the Torah that talks about punishment? You have entire parashot that talk about punishment. You have entire Gemarot that talk about punishment. You have entire Sfarim talk about punishment. What about everybody's an idiot except you? Nobody else knows anything except you. You gave it the Chidush. All the Gedolei Israel, the ones that are alive, the ones that passed, none of them said what you said. You're bigger than everybody else that came before you. You canceled out the sin on everyone. And all the people like, yay, yay. What yay? He just told you something and negated the entire Torah. How are you sitting there not throwing your chairs at him? Forget tomatoes. That would be too soft. How are you not taking your chairs, throwing at the guy? How? How is this possible? How is it possible that our synagogues are inviting such people, clapping for them, saying, oh, it's a holy person? What, because he has a beard? The sheep have beards also. The Paro found him holy also, the sheep. The goat, whatever it is. Osama bin Laden had a beard also. Does that make him holy? What happened? What happened to Emet? How could this be? This could be, Rabotai, because he obviously hasn't learned, and God only knows how long, if ever. I don't think he even knows he finished the Chumash, to be honest with you. You cannot be that foolish and say such things if you actually know Chumash Rashi. Now, what about the crowd that invites him? Same thing. Same thing. Why? If anyone in the crowd knew Chumash Rashi, I'm not talking about Gemarot, Poskim, Shulchan Aruch, Musa, no, just Chumash Rashi. Just know, remember, every year we read Parashat Bechukotai. Every year we read Parashat Azinu. Every year we read Parashat Bereshit. Bereshit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished the Adam Rishon right off the bat before the Torah. Second Parashat, Parashat Noach, destroyed the whole world. Anyone that knows Chumash Rashi, with commentary by Rashi, knows that this is a Kofer Gamur. We have to throw chairs at him, put him on Cherem. How could this be? And guess what? He's not the only one. He's just one of the most popular ones. That's why I keep mentioning him. I'm not going to mention every clown in the world because that's going to make them more popular. I mentioned the one, Paro, that's leading them, and that's it. There's many of them, though. How could this be? How could we keep inviting these people to synagogues? It means that we ourselves don't know. The Kehilot, Am Yisrael does not know, does not learn. How come we don't learn? How come you see people go to synagogue every day, put on tefillin, come for mincha, arvit, come for Shabbat, but still 20 years, Am Haaretz, doesn't know nothing. Still, his daughter's getting married, mixed wedding, mixed dancing. You tell him, listen, it's not allowed to have mixed dancing for Jewish people. Really not allowed for non-Jewish people also, but that's a different story. Not allowed. It's like, what are you talking about? Not allowed. Why would it not be allowed to have mixed party? How are you supposed to have a party if you're not dancing together and making all the sins in the world? It's like it's the first time in his life he's ever heard such a thing. He's like, listen, I'm not Haredi, I just keep Shabbat. So you don't have to be Haredi to do this. This is every Jew. And he argues with you. So yeah, but his halakha, He goes, nah, that's Chumrah. I said, no, it's not Chumrah. He goes, nah, the rabbis wrote it. So what rabbis? Ribono shel olam, this is what halakha is. Shulchan Aruch. You go to synagogue 20 years, how could you allow yourself to do this? Or you see sometimes people that look really religious, call themselves Hasidim sometimes, and they're in illegal businesses like this cash advance. Which, by the way, as a side note, for all of you that like that topic, I'm preparing a beautiful shiur for you. Already working on it for the last week. Once I'm finished, anyone that stays in the cash advance business, guaranteed Gehinnom. Why? Because after that shiur is finished, you're not going to want to walk next to somebody that's in that business. How could it be that many people consider themselves religious and they're in that business, or businesses like it? How could it be? It means they haven't learned, or the ideology already to start with was wrong. So when you're picking a shul, the first thing is understand that that's how you base where you're going to live. Now, how do we know this? How come I shouldn't pick the house first, then the shul? Pick the nicest community, nicest houses, best deals. We learn this from Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu sends Yehuda to Goshna. He says, go build me a bayit. So the Midrash says, oh yeah, he asked him to build him a house. The other Chacham is, no, the emet is that he went to build him a bet midrash, a place to learn Torah, to teach Torah. He says, yeah, that's what I said. He said, no, you said bayit. He goes, yeah, that's what a bayit is. A bayit is a house. Where's Yaakov? What do you think, Yaakov Avinu is sitting on a couch watching TV all day? Yaakov Avinu is all day in a bet midrash learning Torah all day. That's his bayit. He care about the house, what, a tent? What does he care about the tent? Go build him a place where there's going to be Torah. So you determine where you're going to live based on where is there Torah. You base it on the shul. You base it on that community, on that part of the community. That's the most critical part. Is there an eruv? You have to live inside an eruv. Why? Life is simply impossible outside of an eruv. You can't leave the house pretty much. Especially if you got kids, it becomes very difficult. You have to live inside of an eruv. Now don't worry, the Goyim know that too. The Goyim know about Eruv. Why? Because the real estate prices dropped by 40% right outside of the Eruv. You go to the Eruv, you see, house says 500,000 or plus. 5 feet outside of the Eruv, you see a house, 300,000. Why? Nobody wants to live there. Why? Because they know if I live there, I can't take my kids outside with a carriage. I can't carry my talit. I can't do nothing. You have to live inside an eruv. You guys tell yourself all you want. No, what if I don't carry anything? Can I just still live outside of the eruv? Technically, yes, but you'll regret it. You'll make a lot of sins and go to Gehinnom. Accidentally on purpose. That's the way it is. Yeah, but I can't afford it. Okay, so pray harder. Pray harder. You have to. Why? It's very tough to live outside the eruv. Very difficult. Now, a person needs to know this and needs to do everything possible to get it done as soon as possible. Now, after he picks the shul, there's a community. House, nice, not nice, all that stuff, that's secondary. Obviously, let the wife pick the stuff. If you're married, let the wife pick the stuff. Guys, do not pick furniture. Do not pick houses. Do not pick windows treatment. No one cares about your taste. Let your wife do this stuff. That's her job, not your job. If you spend too much time picking windows treatment, when are you a man? Who's going to do your job? Instead of picking windows treatment, go learn or go make money. Guys that spend an enormous amount of time looking for furniture usually end up getting divorced by the time they picked everything. Why? Because they disagree with everything that the wife wants to pick. Everything she wants to pick is pink or blue or some other color that he doesn't like, and he wants to build himself some caveman type of house. And guess what? He's never there anyway. He works all day. What do you want to pick houses for? Let her pick. She's going to enjoy the house. You go work. Do your thing. Your whole life, your whole bite is your wife and your Torah. That's your bite. You should be very focused on where can I put my sfarim? Where can I put my books? That's the only part you should care about. Everything else doesn't make a difference. Big bed, small bed, windows, no window, doesn't make a difference. Where can I put my books? Thank you. Everything else extra. Let her be happy. Let your wife be happy. And you could pick it. You could not. You could ignore my advice. You could take 16 years worth of marriage and throw it in the garbage and say you know better. And you're going to pick the furniture. And you're going to have nice furniture. And you're going to have a nice room. You're going to be modern. You're going to be alone too. Modern. Alone. Modern. Modern and alone. That's the new thing. It's very modern to be alone. Guys that have nice apartments, that are very, very nice and chashubi and very pristine, they usually don't have wives. And they definitely don't have kids. Why? You have kids, all the niceness goes to hell. Why? That's what kids do. Now you come home, you got a few kids. Don't start complaining to your wife about the toys being on the floor and there's drawings on the wall. That's what's supposed to be. That's what the house is for. The house is not a museum. If they draw on the wall, Baruch Hashem, they know what to do with the wall. A Jewish house is not supposed to look like a museum. It's supposed to look like a house where there's kids and there's a wife and there's a husband and there's a family and there's life and there's a mess. I'm not saying make it a mess on purpose. Obviously, you keep cleaning, but the more kids you have, the more impossible it is.
That's hilarious.
The point is, Rabotai, is you have to understand your role in the world as a man is to learn Torah, make a living. If your wife is the one that's working, you're an avrech, it's a different story. You learn Torah, she makes the living. No problem. You have even less to complain about. But if you're working and learning, that's it. The neatness of the house, the toys being on the floor, the windows treatment, and all that other stuff, and what the food tastes like or doesn't taste like, that stuff, that's not your concern. You eat food to survive, not to be one of these people that's on TV tasting, I taste the sugar on this one. She made you food, say thank you. Rabotai, I'm teaching you this because these are the complaints I get every day. People complain to me about their wife's cooking. People complain to me about their wife making a mess. People complain to me about the kids screaming. And I said, Alvai, I had these complaints. Alvai, this was the real problem. Well, you know what the real problem is? They're not learning Torah. If you were learning Torah, you wouldn't have time to notice that the toys are on the floor and the food tastes a certain way and the windows are not a certain way. If you were learning Torah, you don't have time. You don't care about that stuff. Why do you care about that stuff? Because you have shtuyot in your head. There's a couple of cockroaches running inside your head and they're betting, is he going to yell today? Is he not going to yell today? There's a machloket between the cockroaches. So, now that we've found a house, found a wife, found a synagogue, maybe one day we'll find an air conditioner too. What are we supposed to do? No, you already did it, don't worry. The air conditioner's on break today. You already did it. Sadiq did it. It's put at 65. Wanted to freeze us, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu says no. The gzera is you're gonna melt. So, what should my mentality be now that I have a house, now that I have a wife? What should my mentality be? I gotta make a living. Fine, you gotta make a living. Who makes you a living? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, I don't have that much time to learn. I have a lot of time to learn. All this mentalities and excuses that people make. What should my mindset be about learning Torah? I got a guy, nice guy, Baal Tshuva. Only a few years Baal Tshuva. Still doesn't know very much. Not because he's only a Baal Tshuva for a few years. That's not a problem. Within a few years you can know a ton. He doesn't know very much because he doesn't allow anyone to be his rabbi. He wants to be his own rabbi. So he doesn't know very much, so he makes a lot of mistakes. And I ask him some basic things. Did you do this? Did you do that? He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know because no one's directing him. So, one of the principal rules of the Torah, you have to have a rabbi. You have to have somebody that influences you. You have to have somebody that guides you. They don't necessarily need to be the same person. You could be influenced by, let's say, me, for example, or Rav Mizrahi, or someone else that's very good, that's going to influence you to do better. But to someone that directs you and tells you right, wrong, do this, don't do this, could be your local rabbi, could be somebody else. You have to have a rabbi, though. A Jew without a rabbi is simply a Jew that doesn't have a God. Why? Well, how could the two be the same? God is God, rabbi is rabbi. No. If you don't know what God said, it's like not having God. How are you going to know what God said if you don't have a rabbi? No, I'll read myself. Who says you're right about knowing how to read? Who says you're right? No, why? I can read, he can read. No, my friend. You can put words together. He knows how to learn. Sometimes you can read the same paragraph 3, 4, 5, 6 times and still not understand it. Or understand it wrong. One day the rabbi says, yeah, but you missed that one word. That one word changes the context of the entire paragraph. You need to have a rabbi to tell you right, wrong, yes, no. You have to have one. But this rabbi has to have some yirat shamayim. This rabbi has to love Torah. Now all of this does not come for free. Why? Because the rabbi has to eat. So you have to be supportive. Why? Torah shouldn't cost any money. No, it shouldn't. And whatever you do for a living shouldn't cost any money either, if we were living in communism. But since he has to eat and you have to eat, you have to be supportive. You have to be supportive. That money is not just for you to buy window treatments and more bamba. The money you make is also to help these people that are helping you. This is a given. This is why tzedakah and maaser are two separate mitzvot. They're not the same mitzvah. Maaser is 10% of your income. Has to go for the sake of Torah. Tzedakah is other things. Given to poor people, buying an aliyah in a shul, sponsoring certain amount of things, whatever it is that you want to do. Maaser has to go to giving, to publicizing Torah. Has to. Whether it's kiruv, or it's helping somebody learn Torah, or helping your own teacher, whatever it is, you have to. Has to be. Why? You have to remind yourself the only reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving you a living is because you're fulfilling the Torah. Is because He's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So long as you don't give maaser, you're not admitting to it. Yeah, but if I gave maaser, then I wouldn't have enough. Oh, that means you haven't learned anything yet. You still think you're making the money. Tzedakah is above and beyond. This is a very, very important thing for people to know, because it's not about the money. It's about your treatment of money, your understanding of money in the world. So long as you think that when you give the rabbi $500, you're helping him, you haven't gotten the point. The tree of life is for those that grasp it, but those that are meritorious, those that are happiest, are the ones that invest in it, not the ones that receive it. When you give the rabbi $500 or $5,000 or $5 or whatever you give, you're getting the help, not the opposite. It's not like when you go to Walmart, you give them $500, they give you a computer. No. It's not, it's the opposite. When you give for the sake of Torah, you're taking. You now have bought yourself a piece of Torah. You are now entitled to a little Torah. So long as you understand that, good, keep giving. You don't understand it, gotta learn a little more. Now the Chazon Ish says the biggest nightmare that a person should have in their mind, something that they should be scared of worse than Gehenom, is to die in Am Haaretz, to die an ignorant person. That should be the worst nightmare of every person. To simply live a whole life of 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, whatever it is, and you die without really knowing very much. You're not really sure what Halachot Shabbat really are. Every year, you're not really sure how big the sukkah should be. Can you still use those things that fly around, or do you have to use something else? You know, you're not really sure what to do, how to do. Is your matzah, can you just buy it from anyone, or do you have to buy it from this one? You're not really sure about a lot of stuff. You don't really know much. You're hoping somebody's going to invite you for every holiday, because that way you can pretty much rely on them. The Chazon Ish says that should be the biggest nightmare of a person. Because that way, a person has lived 70, 80 years, and he simply has no chance of expecting anything good to happen after. No chance. Why? If you didn't know how to keep the Torah, under what pretense is HaKadosh Baruch Hu going to let you enter Gan Eden with Moshe Rabbeinu, with Rabbi Akiva, with the Chazon Ish, with the Steipler Gaon, with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes? How are you going to enter the same place as them? They knew Torah. They sacrificed for Torah. How are you going to be allowed to enter the same place as them? If you didn't toil for Torah, you didn't learn Torah, you weren't even sure you were following it, Bichlal. Now, for a person to know Torah, it's not just about learning, it's also about praying. Now, when you have kids, one of the most important things for you to do, aside from teach them, send them to good schools, is pray for them a lot. To what extent? One day, someone gave the Chafetz Chaim his past mother's Teilim, Sefer Teilim, and it was blackened and really, really old. And as soon as they gave it to the Chafetz Chaim, he started hysterical crying. He held the Sefer, and he just started crying uncontrollably, crying. You know, and his mom was passed on already for many years. It wasn't like it just happened. But they gave him the Sefer and he started crying. Old man is crying. It's dangerous. They tried to stop him. He said, Kvod Harav, why? Why are you crying so much? He says, look at this Sefer. Look at this book of Teilim. You know why it's black? Because of all the tears that my mother shed, crying over me, praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please Hashem, please make my son a Talmid Chacham. Please help him learn Torah. Please help him understand the mitzvot. And she would cry and cry every single day. And you know where she learned it from? On her wedding day. On her wedding day, her grandmother, which means his great-grandmother, her grandmother came to on her wedding day. She says, Biti, my daughter, you listen to me. Be'ezrat Hashem, you're going to have children. And you take this Sefer Teilim, and you cry every day, every chance you get over your kids to learn Torah, to be Talmidei Chachamim. Not just to fulfill the mitzvot, to be Talmidei Chachamim. You cry every chance you get. And my mother took it to heart. She would put on the water to boil, and while the water is waiting for it to boil, she started learning Tehillim and start crying. After the water boiled, she had to make pasta. She put the pasta in. Oh, it's more time. Just to wait till the pasta. She read more Tehillim, cry some more. Then after that, you make the sauce. Takes the sauce another 20 minutes. Read Tehillim, cry some more. How much she cried? As much as she possibly could. So you see, this Sefer Tehillim, it's not just a Sefer Tehillim. This is the Chafetz Chaim. This is the Mishnah Brura. This is everything. This is me. This is everything that I became is because of this tears of my mother. That's why I cry. Everything because my mom cried. I always tell people, as part of my personal story, how much my mother, God bless her, cried. How much my wife cried. At the times that I wanted to kill myself because life didn't have much of a meaning. You never understand the value of those tears until you get something, until the gates of heaven are opened for you, and you think it's just because God feels bad for you. No, He feels bad for the poor women that are crying for you. He says, stop crying. Okay, I'll open the gate for this loser. Let him in. Let's see what happens. How much did they cry? How much did they cry? I could live 1,000 lives and I won't ever know how much I owe them. The amount of tears that my mother shed over me just because she wanted me to live. How much did they cry? Chabotai, if you're already going to have kids, get ready to cry. Or else don't have kids. Because if you're not going to cry for your kids to become Talmidei Chachamim, what are you bringing them for? What, to be a karate kid? There's plenty of them. $85 a month, you can make any ox a karate kid. To make a soccer player, there's already plenty of them. To be a football player, there's a bunch of mooses, 900 feet tall and 1,000 pounds each. There's a bunch of those. A businessman, Wall Street's full of them. There's so many of them that already went to Silicon Valley too. What are you going to do? What are you going to have kids for? For what? There's 8 billion of them. What are you going to have a kid for? If you're not going to cry for your kids to be a Talmid Chacham, for your daughter to be a Tzadikah, what are you going to have them for? For what? Go get a puppy instead. We have to cry for our kids. We have to do everything possible for our kids to be Talmidei Chachamim, or else there's no purpose. Not for them or our marriage. You have to do everything possible to cry constantly. Please HaKadosh Baruch Hu soften his heart and make him love the Torah. Please HaKadosh Baruch Hu soften our heart and make us see the Emet and never even think about being in the bad side with all of these wicked people. We have to cry. Because those tears, one day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say, okay, now I'm going to pay for it. He collects it. He collects the tears from this prayer. He collects the tears from that prayer. He doesn't pay right away. Why? You don't even have a kid yet. Or your kid's too small to do anything with. But he takes this prayer. She cried here. She cried there. He cried here. He cried there. And he puts it in his reserves. He puts it in his reserves. He puts it in his reserves. One day he pays. How does this work? Recently, there was a monumental Torah event where there was a worldwide Siyum HaShas, where over 100,000 people worldwide got together, almost 90,000 or so just in New York alone, got together where over 20% of them, over 20,000 of them, completed the Shas, completed the entire Gemara by learning one daf per day. A daf of Gemara is really 2 pages, because the Gemara has back and forth. And if you learn one daf per day, you will complete the entire Gemara as far as learning it basic You will complete it after about 7.5 years. It's an enormous commitment. It's a huge undertaking. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But nonetheless, many people have done it over the last almost 100 years or so. Now, where did this concept of Daf Yomi start? There was a young boy named Meir. And Meir was learning under a Rav named the Rav Shalom Moshkovitz. And Meir had a dream as a boy. Meir saw that in his yeshiva, the boys would learn, and they were very serious, and they would have all types of things to deal with, but every so often, they get happy. Every so often, every kid. And you notice, when is that point? When they completed a daf. You finish the daf, you have this sense of achievement. Why? I just completed a daf Gemara. I have a piece of the Torah in me. No one in the world can take it from me. You feel a sense of achievement. I came to the world for a reason. So he saw this joy that every Jew gets by learning a daf Gemara. It's a joy that every Jew should enjoy. Now the problem is, most people don't understand the value of Torah. So do you tell them, learn the Gemara, it's almost 2,700 pages, like, it's too much, give me a little cute book with commentary on it. 30 pages max. Give me the point. Tell me yes or no. People are scared by it. So as a little boy, he had an idea. He says, if every Jew learns one daf per day, one daf, it's not a lot. Takes, let's say, an hour if you learn it superficially, not to the omic, to the depth of it, just superficially, it takes about an hour. Just covers the basics of the daf. An hour a day, you do one daf per day, you'll finish the entire Shas in 7.5 years. Every Jew with such an accomplishment, ishtabach shimo la'ad, this is amazing. Once a Jew finishes the Shas, he feels like he has a piece of the Torah. It's going to keep him going. It's much more difficult to give in to the Yetzirah and leave the derech after you have a Shas under your belt. But most people are not even willing to start it because it seems so big. It's like my lectures, le'avdil. My lectures, people say, it's 3 hours. You have anything shorter? If you want it to be over, don't even watch. If something is interesting, you know you never want it to end. How come you never say, this movie is 2 hours. You have anything shorter? Why? Because the Yetzirah doesn't give you the same thought. A 3-hour lecture says you have something shorter. Why? If it's good, why do you want it to end? Let it be 300 hours. You watch as much as you can, whenever you can. So as a little boy, little Meir had this idea. If every Jew would learn a Gemara once a day, for an hour, he learns the daf. And then you do this at every Bet Knesset. Rav would teach at every Bet Knesset. Then everybody would finish the Gemara at the same time. Here in Germany, in Poland, in America, everybody would finish, and then everybody would celebrate the Siyum HaShas together with a big kavod for the Torah. But he was a little boy. Who am I going to tell this idea to? He says, let me tell it to the rabbi's daughter. The rabbi's daughter is 5, 6, 7 years old. Little girl. She'll listen to me. And he tells this to the rabbi's daughter. And the rabbi's daughter says, my father, Rav Moshkovitz, he says, you're a very talented boy. But why should you waste this talent on fantasies and fairy tales? She tells him, why should you she says, the Gedolei Adon, my father, and all of the biggest rabbis in the world, Chafetz Chaim and others, they didn't have this idea. So why are you going to live this fairy tale thinking you can make the whole world learn Gemara? Years passed, and this little Meir became Rav Meir Shapira Milublin. Started a Bet Midrash, or before that actually, became an Avrech. And he never let go of this idea. And one day, He gets to the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim is already in his older and later years. And he says, Kvod Harav, I have an idea. And maybe you could help me with it. I've had it since I was a little boy. And he tells him, I have an idea that every Jew will learn a daf yomi. They will learn one daf, and after 7.5 years, they'll finish the entire Shas. And the Chafetz Chaim says to him, it's a great idea, but you have to tell this idea to everyone. So you come, there's a big Torah event that they have, that they invited me. I'm going to invite you. You come to the event, and you tell this to all the rabbis. The biggest rabbis in the world are going to be there. But make sure to come a half hour late. Don't come on time. Just as the king says, the servant does. Rabbi Meir Milublin says, Chafetz Chaim says to come a half hour late to this Torah event. I'm coming a half hour late. Big event, big personalities there, big Talmidei Chachamim there. Chafetz Chaim, almost 100 years old, speaks. Everyone is excited just to see him. Ruach HaKodesh was on his face. Suddenly, this young boy, this avrech, his 20s, walks in a half hour late. People look immediately, who has the audacity to come a half hour late to such an event? But suddenly they see the Chafetz Chaim, almost 100 years old, get up off of his chair for this young avrech. You know who you get up for the chair from? Who do you get up? Who do you get up when you see? Your Rav. Talmid Chacham comes in, you get up. The Chafetz Chaim, the Sar Torah, the king of Torah of his generation, he gets up for this young boy. This must be a prodigy. This must be Eliyahu Navi. This must be Mashiach himself. Everybody gets up. Everybody wants to hear who this little boy is, who this young guy is. They all get up. The Chafetz Chaim nods to him, tells him to come speak. Now, of course, who doesn't want to hear this kid? Who doesn't want to hear what this kid has to say? Chafetz Chaim got up for him. He gets up on the podium and he tells everyone about his legendary idea called Daf Yomi. Everyone buys into it. Everyone loves it, especially since the whole thing that happened, how much of a genius you have to be to set the whole thing up the way the Chafetz Chaim set it up. How much of a genius you have to be to say things the way you have to have such an idea. And guess what? Over 100 years later, you got yourself over 100,000 people doing this. What bracha such a person has. Now, Rabbi Meir Shapira Milublin became a legend. He died young, but became a legend. Opened a yeshiva, and the people that learned by him became Talmidei Chachamim. But one boy started learning, and he came to his rabbi, Rabbi Meir Shapira, and the rabbi says to him, he looks at the boy, and he says, you too will finish the Shas one day. You too will complete the Shas. And the boy said, yes, 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 I'll finish it, I'll do it. The rabbi said, I'll do it. The rabbi gave him chizuk. The boy didn't know right or left, but the rabbi says, I can do it, then I can do it. But as HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have it, shortly later, the war broke out. The Holocaust began, and 6 million of our brothers and sisters were murdered in cold blood. During the war, and during the Holocaust, when you're seeing dead bodies in every direction, you start to lose yourself. And the little boy is seeing his friends die, and he knows his turn is next. He prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the merit of his Rabbi, and the merit of Rabbi Meir Milublin. He says, Rabbi Meir, You promised me that I'm going to complete the Shas. You said I was going to complete the Shas. Talk to Hashem for me. Tell him to keep me alive so I can complete the Shas. Almost everyone he knows died, but he survived. But he got out of the war, he got out of the Holocaust, he came to America, and he forgot about the Shas. He forgot about Torah. He learned about America and all of the desires that come with it, all of the addictions that come with it. The addictions of America didn't start just now. It's always been this way. Even at the time of World War II, the tzaddikim were scared from coming to America. The Klosenberger Rebbe writes in his own history, he says to people, we have to be, when we go to America, we have to be secluded. We cannot be part of the Americans. We have to be like an island, by ourselves. Why? Because who knows if we could overcome the desires of the Americans. We live there because they're allowing us to live in peace, but that's it. That's what you see till this day. The Hasidim, generally speaking, the really strong ones, the Satmars, the Bobov, all of those, they generally tried their best to stay to themselves. They try not to be part of the rest of the nation. Everything they possibly can to stay by themselves. Why? It's the only protection you have here. You look at the rest of the Jews, the rest of them that become, chafif like everybody else, guess what? They have a lot more intermarriage, a lot more problems. So this young boy forgot about the promises, forgot about the survival, forgot about the miracle, and forgot about the Shas. Years passed, and the boy tells the story himself. He becomes an old man. And he goes to sleep one night. And he has a dream about who else other than Rabbi Meir Shapira Milublin coming in his dream and rebuking him, scaring him to death. He says, you are only alive because of me. You prayed so I could go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to keep you alive so you can finish the Shas, because I promised you that you're going to complete the Shas. So why are you not doing it? If you're not going to do it, there's no point for you to be alive. I owe you. You owe me this. He woke up. He couldn't go back to sleep. And he came to his family the next morning, and he tells them the dream, and he says, from now on, we're changing everything. We're taking on everything. We're taking on the entire Torah. We're taking on all of the mitzvot. We're all doing tshuva. We're changing everything. No exceptions. We're moving. We're changing everything. And on his 90th birthday, he shows up at the Siyum HaShas. On his 90th birthday, he shows up at the Siyum HaShas, and he stands next to Rabbi Shimon Eliko from Mexico. And he says, this is my Shas. This whole thing is my Shas. This is my Shas. So Rabbi Shimon Eliko from Mexico says, yes, I'm also my Shas. He goes, no, this is my Shas. He goes, why is it your Shas? He tells him the whole story. He says, my Rabbi, Rabbi Meir Lublin. The whole thing happened. Holocaust, this, that. I got off the deck, I got back, he's in my jeep. This is my Shas. He says, you're right, your Shas. Your Shas. Why? A few tears, a few prayers, and a moment of truth where a person understood, this is my purpose in the world. It's my purpose in the world. Without learning Torah, Rabotai, we are no different than Goyim. Without learning Torah, we're no different than idol worshippers. Chazal says that really the first Goel is the last Goel. The first Mashiach, Moshe Rabbeinu, is the last Mashiach. People keep saying, no, it's this one, he's the Mashiach, it's Moshe Rabbeinu. Whether it's going to be Moshe Rabbeinu Mamash or it's going to be a part of his neshama doesn't really make a difference. What's the point? It says Moshe Rabbeinu is the ultimate Torah. He knows the entire Torah more than anybody else in the world. His Chavruta was a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he's not coming to save a generation of people who do not want to learn Torah. That's what the Midrash says. He's not coming until we start understanding that Torah is not a suggestion. It's an obligation. It's survival. It's like breathing. So long as we do it purely to enjoy ourselves when we get time, when it's convenient, when it's not mixing up with our schedule, then we're confused at what our purpose is in this world. Now, when a person does know Torah, when a person does understand their purpose in the world, they start seeing that there is a difference between their mentality and everybody else's. They start seeing that their reality is very different than everybody else's. And the Chazon Ish writes in his Sefer, Emunah V'Bitachon, that a person that knows Torah, not just knows the Parashat Shavua and he reads a little bit. I'm talking about understands, Talmid Chacham, understands halacha, understands why, yes, right ideology. He says such a person may look like a man, may walk like a man, may breathe like a man, may eat like a man, but he's not a man. He's an angel among them. A person that has real Torah, Rabotai, is an angel among men. But sometimes a person can learn a lot, but have a faulty ideology that can ruin all of it. Meaning they have all of the prerequisite knowledge, but they don't apply this knowledge everywhere. So just one screw ruins the whole thing. There was a rocket with the first Israeli astronaut that was supposed to go to outer space some years ago, and although I don't believe this Israeli astronaut was religious, he thought it was a good idea to bring a Sefer Torah with him to outer space. So he brought a Sefer Torah with him into the rocket, and everyone in the world were watching, not only because it's exciting, you have a rocket go to outer space, place we know nothing about, not that we know much about what we live, but nonetheless, you go to outer space, everyone's watching. Needless to say, all of the Jews are watching, they're excited, and they see this rocket go up in the air, really fast, and there's fire everywhere, and everyone's excited, and they're counting down the seconds of how much longer it's going to take for this rocket to leave the atmosphere, and how amazing it is that there's a Jew, a Sefer Torah, about to enter. What an achievement for such a small people. And everyone's counting, and then they're counting up the feet of how high it is, and shortly later it blows up and kills everyone. Now, unfortunately, Rabotai, when they were as disappointed as you were listening to this horrific story, when they analyzed this explosion, they analyzed it to the best of their abilities because they invested billions of dollars to make this dream a reality. And instead of a reality, it turned into a nightmare. So NASA investigated every little thing to see what happened. How could such a thing go wrong? A rocket has over 1 million parts. 1 million parts go into it. Just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 1 million is difficult. Needless to say, put 1 million parts together, 1 million screws, 1 million pieces, metal, this, plastic, all types of things, 1 million pieces. They had to analyze every single piece. What went wrong? How could this rocket that we invested billions of dollars into explode and kill everyone and disappoint everyone and end such amazing lives and such amazing dreams? When they analyzed it, they officially made a public statement But the reason why the rocket exploded was because one screw wasn't screwed the whole way. And the pressure from the rocket and the fire and the air and the atmosphere and everything else was too much for that piece to hold on, and as soon as it fell apart, everything else, domino effect, destroyed the entire rocket as fast as it was flying. That's how fast the explosion was. One screw out of 1 million parts. Now, we cannot bring those poor lives back to this world, but we can learn from them some musar for ourselves. If a rocket with 1 million parts and billions of dollars invested into it, some of the brightest minds in the world invested into it, could simply explode and become a nightmare because of one tiny little piece going wrong, not screwed the whole way, needless to say, is a Jewish life, is a human life. If we learn Torah from the books, but do not apply it like a Kadosh Baruch Hu says, do not use it like a Kadosh Baruch Hu says, do not value it and respect it like a Kadosh Baruch Hu expects it, then that's not one screw. That's the whole ship. When you learn Torah, you have to treat it as if it's this rocket. One screw missing, the whole ship is gone. Everything is worthless. Once you think that Hashem owes you anything, that you are doing Him a favor by learning, that He owes you something because you learned, He owes you something because you did, He owes you something for whatever crazy reason you have in your head, or Manis Friedman told you so, or some other moron told you so. You think Hashem owes you something, you might as well not learn. Why? Your ship's going to blow up anyway. What's the point? The key is, Rabotai, to first know HaKadosh Baruch Hu introduces Himself in last week's parasha several times. Several times. Why does He keep saying His name? You see that Moshe Rabbeinu meets HaKadosh Baruch Hu in an unusual way. After he runs away from Egypt, he spends 40 years in Cush as the king, then gets kicked out of there, goes to Midian. And miraculously speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu for the first time out of a burning bush. And he tells Moshe, Anochi Elohei Avicha, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov. I am the Father, I'm God the Father, your Father, the Father of the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's me. Okay, fine, I get it. Moshe is scared to death, hides his face. Then after they have the discussion, he asks him, what's your name? He says, Ehyeh asher yeh, I shall be as I shall be. God answered to him. Okay, fine. Then later on he says to Moshe, go free Am Yisrael. Go speak to Paro and make sure to tell them that I'm God. Okay, you already told me twice already. I get it that you're God. I'm speaking here for an hour and a half. You guys get the point that even if you don't know my name, you get the point I'm some guy. If God was speaking to you, you wouldn't ask who it is. Kadosh Baruch Hu already tells us, okay, Moshe, tell them I'm God. Moshe, by the way, I'm God. Okay, I get it. You're God. Later on, says again, I'm God. And again, and again, and again. Half a dozen times. And if that's not enough, he starts off this parasha. Parashat Vayera. Moshe complains to Hashem, why did you take me to this job? That Am Yisrael is suffering because of me now. Now the punishment on them from Paro is even worse. Vaydaber Elohim al Moshe vayomer elav ani Adonai. First verse, he says, God speaks to Moshe, says to him, I'm God. What do you think, I was speaking to Aaron? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know it's you. If I wanted to speak to Aaron, I'd say, Aaron, why did you do this to me? I'm talking to you, Hashem. Why does Hashem respond? The first response he gives Moshe is, by the way, Moshe, I'm God. And if that's not enough, he says it again. Vayadatem ki ani Adonai Elohechem. You should know that I am God. And again, and again, and again. V'natati ota lachem morasha ani Hashem. And he just keeps mentioning it over and over and over and over again. If he thought we were stupid, he would fix it and just give us a brain. So obviously stupidity is not the reason why he keeps mentioning that he's God. If we had a bad memory, then he would insert a better memory. So obviously he's not putting his name in here over and over again because of a memory deficiency. So why does he keep mentioning over and over again to Moshe Rabbeinu, needless to say to us, 3,000 years later, that he's God? Because that's rule number one. Know who you're dealing with. Know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Plain and simple. He's the King of Kings. You aspire to be a servant. Moshe Avdi. Who is the ultimate servant? Moshe Rabbeinu. He was called Moshe, my servant. Moshe, my slave. We aspire to hopefully one day be a real servant. Surely we're not more. If a person understands that rule number one, first commandment in the 10 commandments, first introduction, second introduction, 10th introduction, 100th introduction of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, I'm God. That's what he says. I'm God, I'm God, I'm God. That's it, God. That's all you need to know. Nothing else. Once you know I'm God, there's no worries, there's no problems, no nothing. Why? Because you know that everything comes from me. Your problems, your joy, your successes, your failures, your house, your kids, your wife, your husband, your boss, your cat, your employees, your pain in your leg, your stomach pain, your financial problems, the lotto, whatever it is, everything is because I'm God, he says. If a person understood this point fully, then he would start to understand his responsibility in the world. But so long as we think that we live a life that's, in essence, for us to live however we feel like it, with no consequences, with no responsibility, then we really have not even discovered God yet. As long as we think that we have a free choice, then we haven't even discovered that God is God. We have choice, but not free choice. Free choice means you could do whatever you want and nothing happens. Choice means everything you do will have a consequence, a good or a bad. When God is God, we have choice. We don't have free choice. And that's why, even when you learn Torah, if there's a small little screw missing in your ideology, it could create a truckload of pain. There's an avrech that we know. tzaddik, fantastic human being. Alvai, there was 1,000,000 of him. One of his sons recently came to him and says, Abba, I'm going to leave yeshiva, I'm going to go work, make some money. And the Abba, the Avrech that learns Torah day and night, shocked. This is like the worst news you can possibly get. My son wants to leave the yeshiva and go work instead. Doesn't want to be religious anymore. Wants to put his kippah down. First you put the Gemara down, then the kippah, then Shabbat, then everything. This is what his son wants to do now. So he comes and he cries to Rabbi Ephraim. And Rabbi Ephraim is not surprised. Why is he not surprised? Because although this Avrech is a tzaddik, it's a fantastic human being, he does the mitzvot in the best way. His learning is dedicated, alvai alenu to be so dedicated. But there was one screw missing. What is that screw? He has a lot of financial problems, like most Avrechim. Most Avrechim, people that learn Torah, they don't make much money. So they have a lot of financial problems. They're constantly struggling for money, living on debt, borrowed money, gifts, miracles. And they're constantly struggling. I know some Avrechim that they literally barely have any food to eat. But that's their test. And we try to help as much as we can. But the reality is, it's not going to fix the test. It's not going to, okay, so you help this one guy out, there's 1,000 more like him, 100,000 more like him. Alvai, we can help every one of them. But when everybody else that's actually working, making a living, thinks that the money is to go buy houses and not to go buy more Torah, how can we do it? But this Avrech was one of the good ones. Learning, dedicating, and struggling with financial problems. And he would complain about it, about how he doesn't have money. His son would say, listen, Abba, I want to go to the trip. I'm sorry, son, I don't have the money, I'm only an Avrech. And his son would want a bicycle. I'm sorry, son, I can't give it to you, I'm only an Avrech. And his son would want something, and I'm sorry, son, I can't give it to you, I'm only an Avrech. And he would constantly blame his poverty on being an Avrech. So one day the boy got his own idea. He says, if being an Avrech causes all of these financial problems, why should I want to be an Avrech? Let me go make some money, and that way I don't have these problems. Meaning, despite the fact that he learned Torah day and night, he never noticed a mistake in himself. Yes, you can say the reality is I do not have money, I'm struggling, but the added few words of saying I don't have any money because I'm an Avrech, that was extra. It's not true. You don't have any money because the Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want you to have any money. It has nothing to do with being an Avrech. You added that. You think you don't have any money because you're an Avrech. And therefore, your son now doesn't want to be an Avrech. In fact, he doesn't even want to be Jewish. And none of the daughters wanted to marry Avrechim. When you start saying things like, I'm having these problems since I did tshuva, guess what? You could put your tshuva in the garbage. That's what it's worth, your tshuva. Oh, since I did tshuva, I have all these problems. Take your tshuva and throw it in the dumpster. That's not tshuva, my friend. Your ideology is warped. You think you have problems because of tshuva? You're only alive because of tshuva. Who said you would be alive if you didn't have tshuva, if you didn't have Torah? You would have had problems anyway. What, secular people don't have problems? Show me one in all of the world. Show me one person that doesn't have any problems. The difference between someone that has Torah and someone that doesn't is that the one that has Torah has a reason, an explanation, and a purpose for his or her problems. Whereas the person who does not have Torah is simply a victim of himself. He has no idea why this is happening to him. He has no idea why he has any problems. He has no idea what's the purpose of these problems. Because he doesn't have Torah. He has no explanation. It have no purpose. So that means that if you already adapted into the Torah world, but you still have the mentality of a secular heretic, that you think that you have problems because of the Torah, because you did tshuva, because you converted, because you're now living the way Hashem says, you think that's the reason you have a problem, then you haven't even begun to be a Jew. The problems it has nothing to do. Has nothing to do with your tshuva. In fact, you should think that if you didn't have these problems and you were still secular, you'd probably be dead. That's the real truth. I spoke to a Talmid Chacham today, and he told me this. This is a person that learns probably no less than 15, 20 hours a day. How he speaks to me is a miracle. He says to me, I had a real mashbir 2 weeks ago. I had a real dilemma 2 weeks ago. My learning was tragic, he tells me. My learning was horrible. I said, Be'ezrat Hashem, everything's going to be good. He goes, no, you don't understand. I'm doing tshuva for it. I don't understand how Hashem is keeping me alive. My neshama goes up to Shamayim, and I know it's telling Hashem, there's really no point for this guy to come back. He hasn't studied like a normal person in 2 weeks. Well, you know what not studying like a normal person means? You only studied 5 hours. Only. Alvay Elenu, all of us, to start learning 5 hours like he learns 5 hours. But he learns and he says, Hashem, I don't really know. There's probably no purpose for me to be in the world. I only learned 5 hours. The ideology of a person, Rabotai, is critical. It's critical. It's critical that we know that a person needs to value Torah like it's his life. One of the greatest Chachamim that we've had in recent generations was Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Alav Shalom. And someone came to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and asked him, Kvod Rav, when did you decide exactly that you're going to be Talmid Chacham? Did something happen, something motivates you? And he says, yes, in fact there was. He says, when I was a kid, my Abba was a big Talmid Chacham, Rav Leib Auerbach. And he learned Torah day and night. And he didn't have time or ability to make a decent living. So there was a lot of financial problems. And at one point, the debt collectors started coming to the house and started taking stuff from the house so they could sell it and make their money back. So first they came, they took the couch. Then they would come in without even an announcement. Come in, you open the door, a couple of guys already come in without nothing, without saying who they are, show you a piece of paper, take the couch. Next thing you know, take the table, then take the chairs, then take the closet, then start taking clothes. And little by little, me and my family were emptied out. We had nothing left in the house. They started taking the spoons and the cups. There's no food, there's no chairs, there's no table, there's no bed. And then one day, they come in, they see there's nothing left other than my father's Sfarim, other than my father's books, his Torah books that he learns from. So the guy says, okay, you know what, maybe we could take 2 of these Sfarim, sell them, make some money. So they take 2 of the Sfarim, and the moment they put their hands on the Sfarim,
I saw my mother scream out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no! And she starts hysterical crying to Hashem, no Hashem, no, no! I'll give him the closets and the tables and the chairs and the beds and the clothes and the spoons and the cups and the food and everything else. Just don't take my husband's Sfarim. This is our eternity. This is how he's teaching my kids to have eternity. When I saw that my mom didn't care about the spoons and the cups and the tables and the chairs and the closets and the house and everything else, but she could not deal with them taking even 2 Sfarim, 2 books that my father was teaching us from, at that moment I said, I'm going to be a Talmid Chacham. If that's so valuable to you, it's more valuable than all the tables and the chairs and the houses and everything else. Just these 2 Sfarim are more valuable to you than all of that stuff. Then I want to be a Talmid Chacham that knows all of these Sfarim. Because that's an otzar, that's a treasure. That's a treasure. And that's when I decided to become a Talmid Chacham. You see, Rabotai, if we influence ourselves with the right ideology and mentality to view Torah as simply the potion for life, that we survive because of it, we survive due to it. Without it, there's really no point for us to live. We're no different than cows. Quite frankly, the cow has more of a purpose. You can at least get milk from it. And that's why the Gemara Masechet Pesachim says that a person that does not learn Torah should not be allowed to eat meat. Why? Because the cow is more valuable than him. It's fulfilling its purpose. If you're not learning Torah, you're not fulfilling your purpose. When we fix our own ideology to start looking at learning Torah and fixing our own warped mentality and ideology, we look at it as survival, then not only does that help us, not only does it help us start learning Torah and fulfilling the Torah as if our life depends on it, but suddenly we become the greatest kiruv machine known to man without doing anything. Just by people looking at you, they want to do it. Just by people seeing that the only place they can find you is in a Shiur Torah, that makes them want to do it. Just because people see that that's the only thing you talk about. They want to talk to you about business, they want to talk to you about sports, they want to talk to you about girls, they want to talk to you about dogs, they want to talk to you about everything except Torah. And you take no action whatsoever. You don't let a minute pass without Torah. You have no interest whatsoever in these conversations. You have no interest whatsoever in the secular life. You have no interest whatsoever in everything. And they see that time and time again, you're the same, you're the same, you're the same, you're the same. Guess what? They want to be like you. They want to be like you. That doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes with certain people years. Sometimes a few minutes, depends who they are. Depends how many sins they made. The more klipa they have on their soul, the more it takes. But nonetheless, you will see, and I promise you this. This is a promise of a Torah, not me. That by you gluing yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah, you will see that you attract people simply by existing. But since we are in the end of days, we don't have that kind of time. You have to chase people too. Learning Torah is not enough. You have to get up, you have to do kiruv, you have to help other people, you have to bring them to the shiurim. You have to try harder to help others. You cannot just help yourself. And that's actually the halakha l'maaseh. A person is not allowed to simply just worry about himself, put himself into a room, and just worry about his own issues. He has to help Klal Yisrael. If you're learning and you know a lot, start teaching. You don't know enough to teach, You're not a good speaker, you don't have the ability, you don't have a crowd, no problem. You can help people with other ways. Bring them to a shiur. Share the shiur. Sponsor a shiur. Donate for a shiur. There's 1.5 million different ways that you can do kiruv in order to fulfill the mitzvah of not only learning Torah but teaching Torah. But needless to say, you have to have this attitude in your own house. If your wife sees that the more Torah you learn, the better you become as a human being, she is going to be the biggest supporter of you learning Torah. But if your wife sees that it doesn't matter how much Torah you learn, you're still the same ox she met, nothing changes, then guess what? You're going to create a wife that hates Torah. You're going to create a wife that doesn't like Torah. Why? Because she doesn't see the effect. She doesn't see anything good out of it. She just sees that she sees you less 2 hours a day. And you become an ox, seems like you're just hanging out with your friends. She says, you know what, why don't you go buy groceries instead? Why don't you do the laundry? Why don't you change some diapers? Go do something useful. So your Torah is obviously not useful because it's not changing you. You're still the same Amma Aretz that I met. You're still the same ox. Still not modest, still looking everywhere, still cursing, still yelling, still nothing's changed. So what's the point of this Torah? What, so you have fun with your friends? I want to have fun with my friends, she'll tell you. You watch the kids, let me go out with my friends to go learn Daf Yomi. That means, Rabotai, that if your wife is not a fan of your learning, it's your fault. That means you're not showing her the goods. You're not showing her the results of this Torah. You're not changing enough for her to say, I like this. Go for 4 hours next week. You only went for 2 hours this week, go for 4 hours next week. Why? Every time I send you for 2 hours, I get a better you. So go for more. I want to go for 25 years, like Rabbi Akiva, 24 years. I'll get a diamond in return. If we're not becoming that diamond, they're going to hate it. And guess what? If they hate it, the kids are going to hate it. The kids are going to want to become baseball players, basketball players, multi-millionaires. That's what they're going to want. Why? They don't see the benefit of this Torah. It all starts with us. Starts with you. If you're seeing that people aspire to become like you, they want what you have, they want to learn with you, they want to learn from you, that's a good indication you're going in the right direction. Doesn't mean you're there yet, it just means a good indication. Your wife is happy with you, another positive indication, because the best mirror. When do you know you did good? When you start seeing your kids develop into Talmidei Chachamim. They're already older, they're already married, and their heads are straight. And they're already teaching their kids what you taught them. That's when you can say, I did good. I did good. But so long as you don't have any of that, that means we have a lot of work to do. Be'ezrat Hashem, this will give us a little bit more of an idea of what kind of work is ahead, but also what's our responsibility. What's the point of living another day in this world without knowing what our responsibility is? It's just a waste of day. Let's continue learning, continue doing, continue understanding what our responsibility is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He's our King of Kings, He's our Master, He's our everything, He's our purpose. We serve Him and nothing else. Once a person understands that, lives by that, everything becomes easier. So long as we understand that, life turns into something that you want, it's worth living. But if we don't understand it, then life is simply not worth living because you're confused all the time. This week's parasha, Parashat Vayera, please, each one of you, when you read it, count how many times, and the next time I see you, I want you guys to give me the answer. How many times does God say, I'm God? Count it. How many times does God, don't just read the places, look for the place, I'm God. Read the whole parasha for heaven's sake. How many times does God say, I'm God? Look at it. Why does He say it so many times? One reason we learned today, because that's rule number one. He's God. There's many other reasons. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll learn that next time. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.